Hello and welcome to All Villa No Filler, a podcast all about Aston Villa, the world's greatest football team. Of course, as ever, please remember to subscribe to the show, follow us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. So, Villa saw off doomed Southampton 3-0 with a special showing and goal from Ollie Watkins. More on that in a moment. Plus, later in the show, Frankie gets out the seasoning once more for today's spicy question. But first things first, as ever, Frankie, I ask you, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. In a very good mood because there were good omens this weekend, George. Very good omens. Not only did
Yeah.
Aston Villa win 3-0 with Ollie Watkins scoring an absolutely amazing goal, Aston Villa London Lions played against PSG Lions or PSG London fan group, I guess they're called. And Really, really
PSG,
lovely.
LF.
I actually went on a PSG podcast after it as well,
Okay,
which was
yeah.
from their own supporters group who we played against. So that was great. And to sort of live up to the stereotype of Parisians, there were a few male models in that team, a few very good-looking men who were definitely a lot younger and fitter than me, and I had to run up and down the line chasing. And I've never felt more my 38 years than I did yesterday. But Villa, we held out. Look, PSG, they had more of the ball. They scored first, but what did Villa do? We were resolute. I might have sent a long, hopeful, searching ball over the top, and it maybe landed where I wanted it to. And Matt Harker scores a goal to make it 1-1. Darrell got in goal as well with some heroic saves, like Emi Martinez himself. And then went to penalties. PSG missed a penalty right at the end. They attempted a Panenka hit the crossbar, went to penalties.
Outrageous.
And what did we do? The mighty London Lions won the game, beat PSG, which I'm sure it was being played live by Unai Emery at Bodymore Heath. The whole Villa squad were watching, inspired, and I'm sure it was an exact replica of what's going to happen this week when Aston Villa surely knock out probably the current best team in world football in the Champions League.
Well, need Unai Emery's side have any more motivation than that? You know, the London Lions, they are leading the way as ever. And yeah, hopefully they'll take inspiration from that performance. Frankie, can I ask you, did you take a penalty? I'm sure you would have
I
grabbed the
did.
ball at the
I
first
did.
opportunity.
I,
Taking the first one, obviously, is the best penalty taker in the squad. Is that
I'm
fair?
not sure I'm the best penalty taker of the squad, but
Frankie,
yeah,
I don't know what from what I was hearing the other day, Frankie. I hear you've never missed a
I've
competitive penalty in your life.
never missed a competitive penalty. I genuinely still do not comprehend how, from about the age of 11, I've never missed one. Which is, I think it must be around 20. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea what it is. And I almost feel like more pressure now taking them because I'm like, I've held this record since I was 11 years old, and I just
What was it? Is
haven't
it was
missed it. I don't know
was
what
it
it
Gary
is.
Alexander, someone like that? Who there was the Burnley midfielder that took about 100 penalties and didn't miss a single one as
Oh,
well. Was it
really?
with Gareth Alexander? I forget his name now.
Yeah.
I'm
Matt
sure. I'm sure
Letizia
someone. Matt
famously only
Letizia was
missed
pretty
one, didn't he?
prolific. But you provided me with a perfect segue into a discussion about the Southampton game, Frankie, which is, of course, if only Marco Asensio
Yeah.
could take a leaf out of your penalty taking books because he obviously missed two in the game against Southampton. It didn't matter in the end, Frankie. It didn't matter. But 3-0 and three subs scoring as well, again highlighting the strength of our squad, particularly off the bench, as we've talked about for a few weeks now on the
Yeah.
podcast.
I,
It manifests itself at
I,
St Mary's.
I will give Asensio some leeway in that the goalkeepers he's taken penalties against are definitely better than the ones I've taken penalties against. So,
Sure.
but yeah. So yeah, it was a weird game for Asensio. It was probably the only game he's had for Villa where it didn't quite click for him. It just wasn't happening. And even when he lined up to take his first penalty, I thought, when you see a player on a certain day and it's just not quite clicking, you think, not sure they're going to score this. Most days I
Yeah.
backed them, but I wasn't sure about it. And then he missed.
Mhm.
Then he went and missed the second one as well. But I think Southampton, in fairness to them, they had a new manager. They clearly wanted to go out and be resolute and give something to the fans at least and try and not have this derby record. And I think they held out pretty well and they gave Villa, they limited our options really in the first half. We had loads and loads of the ball, but didn't really create that much. But what I would say as well was the number of 50-50s we were winning. It was just, I mean, God, they're a really poor team. It's just a fact, isn't it? And maybe they came up a season too early, or I don't know. They're just not good. But yeah, second half. That's just where class told, wasn't it, with Villa? And you just felt if Villa were going to keep plugging away, it will come. We missed that penalty, and you start to thinking like the 70th minute, you're like, oh God, is this going to be like an Ipswich style 1-1, when they were down to 10 men? And instead, Ollie Watkins comes on. Oliver, I've been chairman of his fan club for a long, long time. And he's had his doubters recently, but he comes on and he shows, that was the challenge to him, wasn't it? In the past you've had John Duran, you've had Danny Ings, now you've got Marcus Rashford here. The challenge is to rise to it and come on and change games in the way that we all know you can. And he did it. The goal he scored, what an amazing ball from Tielemans for the second week in a row after he did the same for Rodgers' goal against Forest. But an absolutely incredible finish from Watkins, I thought that was. I thought that was one of the goals of the season by a long way. Brilliant, brilliant goal from him. He obviously won the penalty just before that as well.
Yeah.
And then from there, Doniel Marlin, who's been a real great signing for us so far. He's tenacious, he's difficult, he's hard to play against, and he's got such a booming shot on him. It was a replica of what he did against Brighton.
Yeah.
So fantastic to see him contributing, and I'm sure there's more important goals coming from him. And then the third goal as well, Asensio missing again. I didn't really back him after missing the first one. Pretty weak penalty. A rare off day for a truly world-class player. And then John McGinn coming in and finishing with that big old booty of his, the man we all love to death. And I think what was it, the first Premier League game where 3 subs have scored 3 goals or something?
That's right. Yeah, but, that's right. Yeah.
I was amazed by that.
History makers. It was a comprehensive performance, certainly all the way through. But I know, obviously, the longer it goes on, the more you do worry. Naturally, as a Villa fan, it is sort of inbuilt in us to panic when these situations arise. And obviously, I think you wouldn't have to think too far back to that Ipswich game, as you say, at Villa Park, when we didn't get the rub of the green there, or we just didn't get it just wasn't happening for us. But I don't know. When I watched that game at St Mary's, I just thought it's coming. It's going to come. I just feel it. I never felt that we weren't going to take all 3 points. And even when Marco Asensio missed that penalty, I just thought still, with the changes we were making off the bench, we always had it in us to take all 3 points, and so it proved. I think Southampton, they were just flagging by the end. They looked tired, they looked defeated. They were putting in the clumsy challenges. Obviously, Bednarek for the first penalty, obviously a stonewall penalty. That Agent Bednarek obviously doing his bit as an ex-Villa fan, player. He might be a fan. And obviously the penalty that McGinn scored from as well, another sort of late clumsy challenge on McGinn. So yeah, and it was much needed, I think. Obviously, we went into the game off the back of the first leg against PSG, where, although we obviously battled really hard, losing that game is always disappointing. I think particularly as well to concede that third late goal as well, and you wonder how a team is going to bounce back from that. All the way through this season, we've struggled in the game directly after competing in Europe. But we didn't look like that at all. To be honest, I thought there would be more changes. I thought Watkins would start against Southampton. I thought Marlon would start, considering he's not in the European squad this season. But Emery knows what he's doing, and I think he just saw potential in those players off the bench. Marlon is a hell of an impact player in terms of his speed, his stamina, his strength. I mean, he is a nightmare opponent to bring off the bench. If you're a defender that's been playing for 60, 70 minutes against decent opposition, as it was, to then have to come up against a fit and firing Marlon, who now scored 3 goals in his last 3 games in limited minutes, I might add. It's a worrying prospect for your defender, and he's proving his worth, and our subs are proving their worth. The squad is proving its worth, and we've hit a really rich vein of form. And I know if we talk about the league specifically, Chelsea are struggling. I think Newcastle are probably, with their game in hand and with the form they're in with the players they've got, you probably think they're going to sew up a top 4 or 5 place.
Yeah, sure.
You never know about Forest. You never know. I think it was a really damaging defeat. Obviously, that last minute defeat at home against Everton, who don't have anything to play for really. Oh, well, they don't. Forest have had a really good season, obviously making it to the semis of the FA Cup as well. But you do wonder. Their fixtures are really kind, so I still think they probably will have just about enough to stay in there. So it's that kind of last place, whether it's us, Man City, or Chelsea, and it's going to
I
be it's going to be
I,
it's going to
I
be.
think Forest are going to drop out.
You think?
Yeah,
Well, I would be intrigued to see if that does happen. I can see it happening. I mean, you've
yeah,
talked about it before on the show, haven't you, Frankie? That you think
yeah.
Forest might hit a sticky spell, and they certainly, 2 games now on the bounce, they've been beaten.
I think
Um,
I just look at them and I think they've never been in this situation before, or
yeah.
not in recent history at least. Obviously, they've won European Cup twice, but they haven't been in this situation for a very, very long time. And that this is when the pressure's telling. They've lost 2 key games, one against Everton as well with a last minute goal. I look at stuff like West Ham away, their second last game. They've got Chelsea at home on the last day, so that looks like it could potentially be a 6 pointer. But
Yeah.
the West Ham away game, I look at that and I think West Ham are not very good, but I'm not quite sure I back Forest to go and get a result there at the moment, or like Brentford, I think might maybe play away there. Maybe I'm
Mm.
got they've got a good away form. So yeah, I just not I don't know. I just think there's question marks over Forest. I think they could go and prove
Yeah.
us all wrong very quickly. But yeah, I think they're the ones I look at. I think they could very easily drop out of it. And if I was to name two, I'd go Chelsea and Forest.
To miss out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's two that Villa are going to get ahead of, I look at them as the two most likely. I just think City. I think Newcastle might come third now. Actually, I think City will just get the results. I think I'll just get the results.
Yeah. Well, on current form, yes, you would probably say those two perhaps are most likely. Obviously, very much depends on. I mean, we play Newcastle, we play Man City.
Yeah, yeah,
So those are big games on the horizon that we need to try and take advantage of. Um, and if we do, particularly in those 2 games, we've got Fulham as well. I mean, Fulham are playing this evening. If they win,
yeah. I know.
they
Yeah,
obviously still not out of it. So um, it's going to be a really really interesting, intriguing end to the season for all those clubs involved. And really that's what the Premier League has become now, because we know who's going to win, we know who's going down. So it's that kind of battle for Europe, which is where all eyes are going to be on. And we're all kind of at the same sort of level. There's no team there that you
yeah,
think is any better or worse than the team above it or below it. I think we've all got strengths and weaknesses. And you could make a case for any of those teams to finish in any place from, third down to seventh, eighth.
mm,
So it's going to be a fascinating end of the season for sure. We're obviously right in the mix. Um, but looking ahead to PSG, a huge game tomorrow, Frankie. I worry that I'm beginning to fool myself into thinking that once again something special could happen,
yeah.
but it's
Well,
going to be a really challenging
something
job.
special happened for the London Lions against the PSG fans, so
That's true.
it had
That
to be
is
special to
true.
beat them. They're very good. Yeah, I'm going to the game. Can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. My pal Jordan from London Lions go with. Um, so I mean, look, I've said it enough times on the podcast, so I'm just repeating myself. But I do think PSG are the best team in world football right now. We saw what they did at Liverpool, but what I think was surprising about the Liverpool game actually as well was Liverpool have not been very good recently. Like they haven't, and like when they came to Villa Park, they weren't very good. And so actually, maybe there were some vulnerabilities there to be got at, and PSG exploited them. It was an amazing performance of PSG to go to Anfield and win, on those famous
Mm.
Liverpool nights. But what surprised me about the so-called famous Liverpool nights, they were quiet. And it was almost like the PSG fans who had those megaphones were just absolutely drowned out Liverpool, which was really surprising. And I think it impacted the game in a way. It certainly impacted the penalty shootout. So I look at Villa and I think, is there a world in which if we can just get an early goal, if we start hard and fast, if we can do that, if we do get an early goal, do we just put a bit of doubt into, they've got a lot of young players there. Do we put some doubt into their mind? But then you would argue they've just had that experience with Liverpool away. They've got the job done there. So then they'll be so confident that they can come to Villa and do something. But,
But it is a different dynamic because obviously
yeah,
Liverpool won in Paris,
yes.
so it is a different dynamic.
Yeah. And if we open up, look, a player like Dembele will have space that he didn't have last week. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, when we attack them, they are going to have the opportunity to counter us and they're going to have the opportunity to go toe to toe and probably outplay us with more space. They're just a fantastic team. This is a whole new experience for Villa to be playing a team at this advanced level of the top tournament in world football. On these sorts of nights. This is a new experience for us, which in the long term will help us no end. But I do think we can cause them problems. I do think we can score a couple of goals. Do I think that we can stop them scoring? I'm not sure. It's going to be very, very difficult. But
Yeah.
all you can do is big loud atmosphere. The players go for it, and whatever happens, happens. And if we do go out, we've done an incredible run in the Champions League. We've gone out to the team that looks like the best chance of winning the tournament itself. But at the same time, you just never know. Unai Emery's been there and done it in the Champions League, and PSG have also had a history of blowing it in the big moments. So who's to say it doesn't happen again at Villa Park?
Well,
Believe.
but absolutely, 100% always. But in terms of the squad, I was listening to what Unai Emery was saying today ahead of the game, and he said, at some stage he'd like to play, Watkins and Rashford together. But because I was thinking in my head, do we go for it at Villa Park? As in, do we start both those players? Maybe Rashford off the left, Watkins up top, or a 4-4-2 with those two up top together. Like, how do we manage it? But Emery's come out and said, no, that's something we'll look at in the future. But for this game, I think we've still got to be more careful. Who sort of would be in your start? You don't have to do the full starting 11, but who would be in your side? Would it be the same team, same 11 that we
This
played
is
out in
really
Paris, or would you
difficult.
make any changes?
This is really difficult. I've been thinking about this for a while. I think I'd start Watkins up front, just start him. I
Yeah.
think I'd start Asensio as the number 10 and Rodgers maybe out on the right or potentially in the middle, in the left area. I think Rodgers is the number 10. He still has a tendency to lose the ball in key spots. And I think if you do that against PSG, you're gonna get really punished. So that's why I
Well,
think Asensio
yeah,
as the
yeah.
number 10 might work a little better. And then maybe Rashford as an impact sub, because maybe Jacob Ramsey just in that central area being all charging up and down the pitch, being a bit more defensively disciplined, perhaps might, and also the fact that when Ramsey plays on the left, he's a bit more central, and it gets that box shape that Unai Emery wants. When Rashford comes on, he tends to stick out to the left, and it's caused us no end of problems for opposition players, and Rashford has done that. But I just wonder with the shape whether the sort of tactical discipline Unai will want against PSG, whether that's not something we can do until we really just have to go for broke, and then we can try it. So yeah, I
I mean,
think
I mean, defensively, would you stick with the same back five that we played in Paris?
yeah. So
Not sorry,
who?
back four, Martinez.
Yeah, Pau, Consa, Cash,
So
and
it
D.
would
Yeah,
yeah. So it was Martinez, yeah,
because I
Conte.
think they played well in the first half. I mean, look, Cash
I
had a
I think Cash had a good game. I
he
think
did.
Cash had a really
I
good
thought I think
game up
he
until the point it was taken off.
I think he did. I think he was really industrious and athletic and made it hard for Kvaratskhelia and Doué, to really do too much. He won quite a lot of tackles. He got up and down. And look, we all know that he's not he's not perfect when he's in the final third, but I think just having his athleticism there does help and his industry. And I thought Dean was excellent last week. Powell
Yeah.
was excellent, and Konsa, he's just his Konsa. So yeah, I think that's probably my back four. And then obviously Boubacar Kamara next to Tielemans. That's what I think it will be.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I think I was thinking about how we sort of change it. I think that you're right. The two changes I would make would be Watkins and Asensio to start. I think I'd probably have McGinn and Rogers maybe as the sort of the kind of the wide-ish players, and Tielemans, Booba, Asensio in the middle. There's a 10 and Watkins up top. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Rashford starts again. I just wouldn't. I wonder whether after seeing his impact off the bench against Southampton, whether Emery just feels like we'll try and go for it again. But yeah, I think Watkins is ready for another start. To be honest, I think he's earned it, and obviously he started the game against Bayern at home, another huge game against big opposition. It caused them a lot of problems. It was Upper Meccano that he
Yeah.
was sort of really sort of running ragged. So if we can do that again at Villa Park, and you're right with the crowd there, and Paris Saint-Germain have never played at Villa Park. The players there have never played for Villa at Villa Park.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't have Premier League experience, so they haven't been to the ground. So it'll be an unknown quantity for them. And there's no expectation on us to turn it around at all. But things can happen very quickly in football. And in previous matches this season, we've started really quickly. We've scored, one, two very quick goals. So if we can do something like that, then you never know. But whatever happens, it's been an incredible run in this competition, and just goes to show how much we've all kind of sort of missed being there, and how incredible it is that we are there, how long it's been since we've been able to say that we're a Champions League club. So
I
it's
really,
been
I don't envy Unai having to make a decision on what to do tactically at all. But what I think we'll do, I think we'll start really fast. I think try and get into them when they're not
I think we
at
have
their full
to.
rhythm. And then I think what might happen after 15, 20 minutes, we start to cede more possession almost intentionally, start to go back into a bit of a shape. And the dream scenario is we've just scored. So then we
Yeah,
try and hit them on the break. If we haven't scored, it becomes harder because I think what Unai absolutely won't want is like a 4-1. If a collapse of some kind.
yeah.
Which look, I'm not saying I think this is what will happen, but it is. There's always the potential for it because they're such a brilliant side.
Absolutely,
You
and
don't,
obviously we have to. We are chasing the game,
yeah,
and obviously by chasing the game, you leave yourself exposed to, as you
exactly,
say, the break, and as we saw last week, the third goal was off the back of us losing possession up the pitch. They broke with numbers with fresh, fast players,
yeah,
clinical players, and they scored the third goal. So, there is a risk that that will happen at Villa Park, and as you say, you know, with their three goal advantage, we have to really limit them offensively.
yeah.
And they've arguably got the best sort of attack in Europe. So it's how we do that. But listen, it's going to be a great occasion regardless.
Yeah.
So yeah, really looking forward to it. And obviously you're going, Frankie, so
Yeah,
it's going to
can't
be a
wait.
great experience for
I'm
you.
glad. I'm glad it's Unai managing them and Asensio taking the penalties. Things are about to get spicier than drunken Blues fans fighting among themselves at Wembley in the spicy question. The Premier League is ultra competitive now, but two sides have underperformed this season in particular: Tottenham Hotspur and Manchester United. George, do you think either one of those clubs can make a quick comeback and challenge the Villa in the next couple of years?
I think Peterborough have got a better chance than you after their cup win.
Yeah, the
Um,
mighty Peterborough.
the mighty Posh.
What some
Um,
incredible goals they scored
yeah,
actually.
they did. They really did. Kiprianou scored, didn't he? Which is my family name
Yeah,
on
yeah,
my mother's side. So good Cypriot lad. Good
yeah.
Cypriot lad with the
Jet
goal.
steering goal as well. We like that.
Absolutely. Got a lot of time for the Posh. Anyway, not no, let's not talk about the Posh. Let's talk about Spurs and United. At this stage, I would say, oh, they both look like a serious project, don't they? I think it's going to take a long time, but I would say it's going to take longer for United if I'm going to be
Yes,
honest. I think
that's what I
Spurs
think.
they have particularly some really good young players. Bergval, Spence,
Yeah.
the defender they signed from Leeds. What's his name? I can't remember. You know what I'm talking about?
Archie
Gray.
Gray. Yeah.
Yeah, they have got some very talented young
Odebear.
players that clearly will be that clearly will be very very good Premier League players in no time at all, I'm sure. I just think it is more of a manager thing and a tactical thing.
Hmm.
I just don't think it's tactically it's working for Spurs with the players they've currently got. They probably need a bit of investment too in terms of bringing in some quality and a bit of experience to supplement that young squad. But I think if they have one really good summer transfer window, for example, and actually spend a bit of money, I can see Spurs coming back fairly soon and being competitive again.
Yeah.
Obviously, without Ange, they need to obviously get the right manager in. United's a different story. I think they're just on a completely different plane from most other clubs in the Premier League, just in terms of their size, the scope, the eyeballs on them. They just operate in a different time zone. And obviously Amrin, they've gone through a whole litany of managers. Amrin's come in, and he's trying to implement the changes he wants to see. He's trying to play this formation that he likes, but clearly the players don't really fit that formation. But he's kind of sticking with it because that's the way he plays, and it's clearly kind of playing until the end of the season and the summer, so he can obviously get rid of a few of these players, bring in some players that will play in this sort of system that he likes. I just think it just goes further and deeper than just a manager and the tactics he plays at United. It just does. I think,
Hmm.
from the very top, and you mentioned this in a recent podcast, Frankie, just from the very top at United, something is not right and hasn't been right for a very, very long time. And I just don't see it turning around anytime soon. I
Yeah.
just don't. I and the more they continue the spiral of finishing outside not only the Champions League places, but obviously outside Europe, that's impacting on finances, that's impacting on expectations, that's impacting on players willing to go to that club.
Mm.
And if you're a player as well that's been linked to United and you've seen, God, the countless numbers of quality players that have gone to United and flattered to deceive massively and then left United and continued on that upward trajectory. I mean, you think of, look at Marcus Rashford, for example, look at
Yeah.
um, Anthony, who's gone to Betis and done
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Um, if you're a player, if you're a player's agent and United come calling and you've got, four or five other quality clubs after you, are you going to risk it and go to United?
Oh,
So I think they're in real trouble. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I can't see United back in at least I don't know even the foreseeable future. I just can't. Spurs, I think there's a few changes that need to be made. I think Levy does need to spend a bit of money, um, or think about new ownership or new funding or whatever. Because I know they've got the new stadium that he's funding, and that's possibly one of the reasons why. But yeah, I think Spurs is more fixable than United for sure.
Yeah, yeah, because the sort of the context I was thinking of it is because when I looked at the league table earlier and I looked at like this top seven that's currently forming at the moment with Fulham just about there as well, just under it. And then you look at Spurs and United down at the bottom end. At the start of the season, I'm thinking in my head, Spurs and United are going to be teams that will be challenging for probably for Europe or something. And I look at Aston Villa and then I look at those other clubs and I think the thing with Villa is like, look, football, anything can happen. Like it can all go wrong in one day, can't it?
Yeah.
But like with Villa, you look at it and you think the owners are clearly very invested. The manager is just elite and has the coach, has the whole Monchi, Vidigani, the entire footballing setup is built towards what he wants. It's a literal dream job for Unai Emery. And then on top of that, you've got let's say like the revenue side of it. Villa's revenues for a long time have been behind. You look at the numbers coming out; they've gone up again. We're still tight, so it seems like Villa's main issue really is just that we're going to have to keep selling players for the time being until we get to a point where the revenues are at a level which obviously they're clearly in the process of doing because the revenues have gone up and hopefully European football continues to come to Villa and we can
Yeah.
therefore get to a point where we don't have to keep thinking about summer which players can we sell, but at the same time like we seem to be doing it quite well at the moment for what we're having to do. So I just thought about it and I looked at Tottenham United and I thought, like that's the thing that gives me the most hope for Villa in the next few years is not just having Unai Emery and the fact that the whole club seems to be very cohesive, but also I look at Man United and I just think they remind me of when Newcastle had Mike Ashley in charge, and it's like fish rots from the head down. It's a graveyard and there's no inspiration anywhere at all. And I almost wonder if Ruben Amorim might be a manager who just walks out and just thinks, I can't do this. That said, Spurs and Man United are still right there in the Europa League. And if they win it, they can get Champions League. That does slightly concern me a bit. And it will feel, I mean, they'll have earned it by winning the Europa League, but there's still part of me that thinks, how have they managed to get that after the seasons they've had? But yeah, I look at United and I think there's a world in which if they don't sort themselves out quickly in the next year or two, they could very easily lose a Bruno Fernandes. They could actually be looking at like genuine relegation danger, like Newcastle did, like when they went down in 2008 or 2009. And for years, you'd have thought Newcastle can't go down now. Surely they've just been in the Champions League 3 or 4 years ago, and they've they're a massive club and all that. And then they went, and it's like poor investment, poor leadership, and that's what led to it really. And look at United, and there's a real like they are too big to fail, but at the same time, like maybe not. But yeah,
There's a very realistic chance they could finish 17th,
yeah,
which is crazy.
yeah.
Uh,
And Bruno Fernandes is doing for them what Jack Grealish did for us. It genuinely is keeping them level kind of higher than probably the entire squad really is. Yeah, so I think United is a bigger long-term project. I'm not saying they're going to get relegated. Of course, they will buy players and they will be able to do that and keep them themselves out of trouble. But they could stay in that lower mid-table area for a couple of years if they're not able to get it right quickly. Whereas Spurs, I'm convinced that if Unai Emery went in there tomorrow, they would go on the exact same run that Aston Villa did the day Unai Emery joined. They'd win a load of games, they'd get Europe next season, and they'd probably push into the top four. Because I look at that squad and I think I just
Yeah,
do not understand Tottenham fans who defend Ange. I do not get it.
yeah,
It's like he look, he's been done since about December of last year. Like tactically, they've just looked like just it's quite obvious that there's a fundamental issue there where like every time I watch them, I'm like, I'm not a bloody tactical expert. I watch them, I'm like, I would know how to play Spurs if I was. I'd look at them and go, they leave miles of space in the middle. You beat the CDM, and suddenly you've got acres and acres to run into. So sit deep, just wait to do it. Beat that CDM, then get your wingers bombing forward or a fullback bombing forward. Your striker making good movements, pick a ball out, and you've just done Tottenham. It's absolutely unbelievable how this has been an ongoing issue now for about a year and a half with them, and it just feels like it's just the sort of the vibe emanating from Ange is not good,
yeah,
and but yeah, I feel like with Tottenham, they'll go and replace him. They'll get a manager in who might get them back into the top 4 or 5 next season. But then it's always the same problem with Tottenham in recent years. It feels like something happens with Levy that drives managers to the edge. Whether it's he doesn't invest the right amount when they just about need it, whether it's that there's just something about dealing with him personally that we don't see that just makes it exhausting and drives you over the edge. I don't know what it is, but there's something. So yeah, I can see Spurs being in this constant trajectory of great seasons where they get into those European places and then they drop off again because it all just doesn't quite work. But
yeah,
there's still a lot of ingredients that I think if a good manager goes in there tomorrow, it turns around like that because they've
yeah,
got some top players, but United just don't quite have that. I only asked that because I know we're all Villa, no filler, but I only asked it because in the context of who are Villa's competitors at the moment, you think
yeah.
they're two clubs that should really be competing with where we are. So yeah, it's
But
interesting.
what I would say is I think it's great for the league. I think
Yeah,
it's really healthy and refreshing, not for those clubs obviously, but for the state of the league, for to have like so many clubs who are genuinely
really good.
competitive now
Yeah, yeah,
and can go to like even like an Arsenal or Liverpool occasionally and beat them. You know,
yeah.
it's possible, and that never really used to be the case. I mean, the historic kind of top four, you knew whenever you played one of those top four teams, you were going to get beaten. Like it just was always going to happen if you were kind of the rungs below.
Yeah.
But now, you know, I think. Yeah, I mean, there are so many good sides in that league with really competitive squads,
Mm.
good managers, well run. And you're right. If United and Spurs get their act together, big if, but if they do and get back into that grouping of really competitive squads,
Mm.
it could make for a really fascinating
It's mad, isn't
league.
it? It's mad, isn't it? Yeah.
So
How
and
competitive
it's
the
great that
Premier League
obviously
is.
we're right in amongst it, you know. So yeah, but no, I think yeah, in terms of quick fixes, probably for both clubs, it's not it might take a bit of time, but certainly as you say for Spurs, they've got more about them that, as you say, if a manager does come in, there's more likelihood that they will just they can go on a bit of a run and achieve. But with United, not so sure.
Yeah.